In this video series, we're going to be looking at converting prices into different currencies. And for the first one, I want to do a really simple exercise where we've got a list of prices for our products. I know what they are in sterling and GBP, and I just want to convert this whole column into US dollars. Now, I've just recently Googled the exchange rate between GBP and USD. And I found the exchange rate is 1.34, which is basically saying that £1 sterling is worth $1.34. So then I can calculate all these prices in column D. Now, there's a couple of different ways of doing this. First of all, I'm going to do it wrong and show you why it won't work. So if I start in my USD column here and I just say equals the price in GBP, which in my case is in C3, multiplied by the exchange rate in D1. When I enter that, it looks like it's worked. That does seem appropriate to me, but watch what happens. If I double click this little corner widget, it should copy that formula down to all of my products. And can you see I'm getting all these value errors? And even where I haven't got an error, can you see my safety glasses are only $5.99 in sterling and they're $152. So obviously something very odd is going on. Let me show you what's happening. If I go into the formula here, I originally started with the formula C3 times D1. But as I've copied it down to the fourth row, can you see the C3 has become C4, which I want because that's the price of my high-vis vest or whatever. But the original D1 has now shifted down to look at the words price in USD, which is why you get this value error, because Excel's having a little hissy fit and saying that's not a value, that's a piece of text, I can't possibly multiply by that. And if I look at the one below that, can you see now it's looking at the safety helmet price multiplied by the safety glasses price, because everything is shifting down a row at a time. So what we really need to do is fix the formula to look at this D1 reference. Now I'm just going to get rid of the rest of my column. Normally you can do Control Shift and down arrow on your keyboard to select to the bottom of your list. For some reason on my keyboard it doesn't work right now. So I'm going to try doing the formula again. I'm going to say equals the price in GBP. Now I want to leave that as what's called a relative reference, because as we copy that down to each row, the C3 will become C4, will become C5 to look at all my different prices, which is what I want. Then I put my asterisk in for multiplication, and then I'm going to choose my price in US dollars. Now that's the one I want to fix. Now, most people would do this using something called an absolute reference, where you put a dollar sign before the row or a dollar sign before the column to fix it in that direction. Now, you can manually type those dollar signs, but you can, at this point, just press the F4 key on your keyboard. Or if you've got a different laptop to me, you'll probably have to do function F4. But what it's saying is, if I start with this one, the dollar before the D is saying fix it in column D, but don't fix the row number. So if I were to copy this to the right, it would carry on looking at the values in column D. But if I was to copy it downwards, that one would become D2, become D3, and so on. If I choose it again, so I've got this one, this will fix the column and not, the row and not the column. This won't fix nothing at all. This is the one that I want, because this fixes it in both directions. The dollar before the D says stay in column D wherever you copy me. The dollar before the 1 is saying stay in row 1, no matter where you copy me. And if I enter that, if I copy that down, you'll see it's worked swimmingly all the way down. So now each row is looking at a different price in this column, but the same value in USD. Now, I like that. I don't mind it. It's a kind of normal way of dealing with it in Excel. But my worry is if you had lots of different currencies going on in your spreadsheet, you wouldn't necessarily know what was in D1, and you might be multiplying by the wrong exchange rate. So I want to show you another way of doing it, is setting up something called a named range, where instead of using the absolute reference, you rename D1 USD or whatever you want to call it, and then you use that name as part of your formula, and that will stop any confusion of multiplying by the wrong exchange rate, but it also, incidentally, also makes it an absolute reference. So if I click onto the cell with my exchange rate in, can you see at the moment it's called D1 in this little name box here? All you have to do is click into the name box and type in what you're going to call it. I'm going to call it USD. Don't forget to hit return because that kind of sets up the named range. And just check that it works. If I click into a blank cell, and choose that little drop down arrow, can you see USD is there? And when I click on it, it kind of zooms me back to that location. I always check that first because named ranges are quite fussy. There's lots of things they don't like. They don't like spaces. They don't like special characters. They don't like things that could be an cell reference. So you couldn't put P45 or P60 or something because it thinks you're talking about column P, row 45. So just check it to make sure it works before you do your formula. And then I'm going to say equals the price in GBP times, and I can just type in USD. If you've got lots of names or complicated names, rather than typing them, you can press the F3 or function F3 if you've got a different keyboard from me, and it comes up with a list of the names, and then you can just paste them in from there. That's a good habit to get into anyway, actually, just make sure you spell it correctly and what have you. And now when I enter that one, and copy that down. That's done the same thing as the absolute reference, but when you look at the formula, it says C4 times USD, C5 times USD. There's no way of getting confused that I've used the wrong currency or whatever. The other thing we may as well do whilst we're here is to format these to look like the correct currencies. So I'm going to select column C here, and this little guy is actually called accounting. And if I say I want the GBP to be United Kingdom, and the price in USD I'm going to have in United States. Then I get my 2 decimal places and my dollar sign and so on. Be a little bit careful about that. I'm just going to undo for 1 second. When you're doing an exchange rate, it calculates it very accurately. Can you see this 66.9866? If I were to format that as a currency, it looks like it's only 2 decimal places. Let me see if I can do a demo. So if I make that English United States, it's gone 66.99. So you would think if I order 100 of those, let me do a little formula over here somewhere. So I'll say that times 100, let's say. You see it's going 6,698.66, and you're going, that's weird. 66.99 times 100 is surely 6,699, because it's not calculating on 66.99, it's calculating on the original value before you formatted it. So formatting it as a currency is not rounding it. What you could do, if you want to be really accurate with your calculation, is you could do a rounding function. There's several different ones. If I just do equals round, you'll see there's round, round down, and round up. So because they're my prices, I think, you know what, I'm going to round up. And what that means is it's going to round up to the nearest however many decimal places you specify. The first thing it wants is the number that you're going to round, and then a comma, and then how many digits of accuracy you want. Because it's a currency, I'm going to say I want it rounded to 2 digits, and we'll see what happens to that. Can you see my 25.39 has become 25.40? And if I copy that down, now my 66.99 looks the same, I grant you that, but let me just do another calculation on it and say this time I would like 100 of them. Can you see now it is 6,699 because it's basing it on the rounded figures, and I think that's quite important. Obviously, if you've got hundreds and hundreds of prices, then potentially being a penny out on each one could make quite a lot of difference. So if you didn't want to see this column, you just want to see the rounded column, what I could do actually, I'm just going to copy these across so I know what columns they are. And there's an option to hide a column. So if I right mouse over the column here and choose hide, it looks like the calculation is the same, but actually you've got that extra calculation going on. And then the only thing is, having hidden that column is a little bit of a pain, because if I ever want to change the exchange rate, I need to unhide the column again. But let's say it's gone up a little bit. So now it's 1.37 or something. As soon as I do that, all of these figures would update automatically. Now, that is one way of doing it. And if you've only got one or two currencies, that's a really sensible way of dealing with it, is to do a named range, maybe do rounding if you want to be super accurate. But come back for the next video, because with that one, I'll look at setting up a table if you've got multiple currencies to deal with.